You're listening to the Everything Kids Books podcast, hosted by Erin Mackey, a podcast for little learners and their parents who love to read together, as well as the authors who write the books they love. Erin's written over 20 books for elementary and middle schoolers and has published 5 books. Together, we'll be reading chapters of your favorite books, sharing your original works, giving writing and marketing tips, and interviewing other professionals in the children's book profession. Let's dive in, shall we?
Hi everybody, welcome to Everything Kids Books. I am Erin Mackey, your host, and today's episode we are going to be discussing some writing tips. The topic today is putting your writing first, keeping your writing time and your marketing time or business time separate. Now, this might seem like it's a no-brainer, that it's real easy. I'm just going to sit down and write, and why would it be hard and I have to really work at this? But there are a couple of pitfalls when it comes to writing if you're not making a plan to succeed. The first is it's very easy to plan to work on a project. You have a book that you're working on or an idea you're developing, and you say, okay, I'm going to work on this today, and you sit down. But then, I'm just going to check my email first. I have to share that on social media. And suddenly you find that it's 3 hours later and you haven't written a single word. So that happens way too often for myself. If I don't have a plan and follow it and try to keep the business side and the writing side separate, it's too easy to get distracted. The second pitfall I find is if you don't set a specific time to write, you get in this I'll make time soon mentality, and it can go days before you've actually sat down and written anything. So you have to make sure that you're taking your writing seriously if you want it to be a career and not just a hobby. So you can't do a fly by the seat of your pants and not schedule something out if you really want to work on your writing. So I want to go over a couple of tips for setting yourself up for success with your writing. The first is to get into a rhythm or a schedule. It really helps you to be consistent, and it increases your productivity with your writing if you set a specific time or just a specific time of day. It doesn't have to be a 9 a.m. deadline that you have to sit down and start writing. I find that mornings are best for me. So especially on the weekends, I will focus on writing on a Saturday morning. Now, I don't set a specific time because Saturday is my only day really to sleep in. So whenever I get up and start my day, that's when I'm going to make sure that I sit down and start writing, because that's when my creativity is the highest and I get the most done. So I have a plan of a time frame that I'm going to sit down and write. The second tip is to put an emphasis on your writing time, and doing that shows that you're taking it seriously. If you want your writing to be a career, and you want to publish books, and you want them out there for the people to be able to read and enjoy, then you have to take it seriously. You don't have to make it your end-all be-all. You don't have to turn it into this grind that you're working at, and it is a full-time job if you want it to be a career, but it doesn't have to be something unpleasant. It can still be time that you enjoy, but you have to put the effort in to make that a specific time that you are setting aside to not let yourself get distracted and to focus on writing only. So you want to make sure that you keep the social media, the marketing, emails, all of the business aspects separate from your writing time. Whatever time you set for writing, do not go into any of those things, even just for a little bit, because it's too easy to get lost in it. So make your writing time a specific time and emphasize that that's all it's going to be for. You can actually set up separate times to do your marketing and your business aspects. You don't want to let that fall by the wayside, but you want to have a targeted time to work on that so that your writing time can be left alone. I tend to try to do some social media posts throughout the day or in the afternoon. A lot of times you can look online and see what are the ideal times to post on each of the social media platforms. So posting on Facebook versus Twitter versus Instagram, you might have different times that you want to focus on because people might be on Twitter in the afternoon, but Facebook it's in the evening. So do a little bit of research and see what is a good time, and you can set up that marketing time and the business time around that. Most of the business aspects, they're not tied to they have to be done by a certain time of day. They're more flexible when you're a writer. So you have that flexibility to say, okay, at 5 o'clock or in the evenings after dinner, that's when I'm going to reserve my time to work for an hour on my marketing and getting social media posts scheduled for the next day, or returning emails, or setting up book promotions, or things like that. So, don't neglect that aspect by keeping the business time separate from your writing time, but make that a priority on its own so you can still be productive and still get things done. The final tip is when you are writing, when you go to sit down to write, minimize your distractions. Set yourself up for success. Shut the door to the room that you're going to be working in if you're able to. Have a drink or snack with you so you don't have to get up and go get those things in the middle. Have the temperature set comfortably. If it motivates you to play music, have some music on the background. Whatever makes that time as comfortable and pleasant for you as possible and can get your creative juices flowing. You want to set that up before you start writing when it is your writing time. It will keep you productive and it will keep you creative as well because your mindset is where it needs to be to get into your writing. Now, I want to go over my process a little bit, just how I normally will sit down to write. And like I said, even though I'm not a morning person by any stretch of the imagination, I do find that my brain is most creative first thing after I've gotten up. So I try to write in the mornings. I'll have a drink on hand. I have the door cracked open because our cats like to join me, especially Seamus. He is my little assistant. He likes to be in my office with me when I'm working. He'll lay around my computer so that he's close by and just to sleep and, be a distraction, push some papers around. But I like to leave the door cracked so that they can come and go, so I'm not getting up constantly to let them in or let them out. I currently have 3 books I'm working on. So if I find that I sit down to write on my middle grade chapter book and I'm really struggling to get into that flow with it and to write, then I might switch it off to a different project. I might go and pick up my 3rd book in the Laurel Hill series that I had started and work on that instead. And sometimes that change, that small change of what you're working on, will allow your brain to kind of get excited and kick in and get creative. And then you find you're able to write easier. I find that sitting and thinking about where the current scene is going and what I'm going to be working on next in that project, it'll often get my creative juices going and it'll help me get into the writing. If I sit there and I'm like, okay, I'm at this scene, so over the next few scenes, A, B, and C is going to happen, and I think about it, it'll bring those words to mind of how I want to write that scene. And I'm able to start writing easier if I had some block there where I was having difficulty figuring out what to write. Sometimes it's a struggle. Sometimes I sit there and I force myself for an hour or two to just get out 1,000 words. And I really struggle with it. It's chipping away at that word count. But other times I sit there when my brain is really, really in that creative mode. I'll get lost in the writing. because the story is flowing so well. And I look up and it's been 3 to 4 hours and I've written 3 to 5,000 words. So you never know what you're going to get when you sit down to write. But every word that you put down of your story counts. Sometimes, like I said, it's easy. Sometimes they are hard-fought words. But you've got to push through and persevere if you really want to be a writer. You've got to make sure you put the emphasis on your writing and you make it a priority. I hope that this has helped get you excited about writing. If you've been struggling, I've been in those spots. Last year was one of them where I struggled to sit down and write, and I didn't write for a while. And once the dam kind of breaks and, your creative juices are going, it's easy to sit down and write. But you've got to push through those hard times too. You've got to keep going if this is something you love to do. And if you've got a story to tell, you want to get that story out there for people to be able to read it and to experience what you have in your mind and you can share with them. So I hope that this was an inspiration to get you either back to writing or started writing, or to help you get your writing organized so that it feels like you're being more productive. That is today's show. Thank you all for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode and found it helpful. As always, I would love to hear what topics you would like me to cover in future episodes, so shoot me an email with your suggestions and I will work them into future shows. Have a wonderful evening and God bless each of you.
Thanks for listening to Everything Kids Books. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, rate, and review in Apple Podcast. Do you have a favorite children's book? Do you have an original book or chapter that you've written? Email it to Erin at erinmackeyauthor@yahoo.com. It could be featured on the next episode. For more information, to see Erin's published books, and to sign up for Erin's newsletter, visit www.erinmackeyauthor.com. Until next time, keep reading and keep writing.